Hi, this is Mike Regan with Tranzact's 2-minute warning for the week of January 30th. Folks, I'm really excited because last week, through our sister company, Active Scout Technologies, we issued our white paper on managing transportation risk. It's one of the most important white papers that we've ever issued. Now, why do I say that? Well, let me share a little story with you. A couple of weeks ago, I was talking to the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar corporation, and he asked me, he said, Mike, what does Tranzact do? And I said, well, we're here for a couple of reasons. First, we want to help companies reduce their transportation costs. The second thing we want to do, though, is to help them manage their transportation functions more effectively. And one of those functions deals with the area of risk in the transportation and supply chain areas. Now, when I mentioned this to Jim, he looked at me and said, well, what kind of risk are you talking about in transportation? And I took a step back and I asked him, I said, Jim, let me ask you this. Is 95% good enough for your corporation? He was like, what are you talking about, Mike? And I asked him, I said, let's say your chief operating officer came in and said, you know, in an effort to save money, we're going to reduce our lines down to being 95% accurate. We're going to accept a 5% defect rate. He looked at me like, are you crazy? He said, we're like 99.999. They are a Six Sigma organization. And I said, well, if that's the case, why is 95% or less good enough in your transportation area? He was like, well, Mike, what are you talking about? And I explained to him, you know, we work with a lot of companies. I said very few, if any of those companies, have contracts for all of the carriers with whom they're doing business. In fact, they may only have contracts for 60, 70, 80% of the carriers they're working with. Now, he said, well, is he serious? I said, absolutely. Now, some of you may be looking at me and saying, Mike, we're way above that. And I say, really? Because I had a conversation with a gentleman that made that same representation, and then he had to backtrack when I asked him, are you getting contracts for all of the carriers that bring material into your facility on an inbound collect basis? He backed off. He said, no. We don't manage that nearly as effectively as we manage the outbound area. And then I said, well, let's talk about insurance. Folks, we could go on and on in insurance, but here's the reality. For a lot of companies, they simply get a certificate of insurance. They never bother to read the actual insurance policy itself. And when you do, it may be filled with all sorts of landmines. And that's why the area of risk in the transportation area is so important. Now, in this white paper, we share some tips on how you can develop a holistic plan for managing that transportation risk. And if you want a copy of it, all you need to do is go to ActiveScout.com or Tranzact.com and download your own copy. Now, after you read it, if you have some questions, simply give us a call or email us. We'd love to continue this dialogue with you because with each 2-minute warning, we're on your team and we're here to help. Thanks for your time.